A black mechanic fixes a Hell's Angels busted bike when no one else would, and gets fired the next day. But what happens next? It's not just shocking, it flips the whole town upside down. This isn't just about bikes. It's about respect, redemption, and revenge, on two wheels. Don't blink. This story rumbles. If you think you've seen loyalty, think again. This story takes a wild turn you won't believe. Stick around till the end, because the final ride? It's legendary. And don't forget to subscribe, we've got more powerful stories rolling in every week. It was just another Tuesday morning at Griffin's Auto and Cycle Repair, the kind of place where country music hummed in the background, coffee brewed weak, and folks liked things just the way they were. Dre Thompson, the only black mechanic in the shop, and arguably the most skilled, had already pulled apart a busted clutch before most of the others had clocked in. He didn't talk much, didn't complain. He let his work speak louder than his presence ever could. But the calm shattered like glass when the roar of a beast echoed down the main road. Every wrench stopped mid-turn. Heads swiveled. It wasn't just any motorcycle, it was a custom Harley-Davidson, matte black with skull decals and jagged chrome pipes that looked like they breathed fire. The kind of bike that had history written in grease, grit, and blood. And riding it, like something out of a movie, was a Hell's Angel. He pulled into the lot slow and deliberate. Leather vest, silver rings, mirrored sunglasses. A face like he'd fought wars and won most of them. The red and white patch stitched on his back said it all. This was no casual biker. This was brotherhood. Dangerous, respected, and not someone you said no to. Inside the shop, tension snapped tight. One mechanic actually walked into the break room and didn't come back out. The manager peeked through the blinds and muttered, "We don't need trouble today." But Dre stood still, wiping his hands on a rag, eyes locked on the bike. He didn't flinch. He saw something others didn't, a machine begging to be saved. The biker killed the engine and swung off. "This your shop?" he asked, voice deep and sharp. Dre stepped forward, unfazed. "Not mine," he said, "but I'm the only one here who'll know what to do with that bike." The biker raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" Dre tossed the rag aside. "Let's find out." The rest of the crew watched, stunned. No one expected the quiet black mechanic to step up. But Dre wasn't about show, he was about precision, pride, and purpose. And that day, in front of a Hell's Angel and a garage full of doubters, he was about to change everything. And it all started with the sound of a roaring engine. The biker leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching as Dre wheeled the beast into Bay 3. The other mechanics stayed back, pretending to be busy but stealing glances every few seconds. Everyone knew what that patch meant. The Hell's Angels didn't let just anyone touch their bikes. It wasn't just chrome and rubber. It was sacred, symbolic, and dangerous if you got it wrong. Dre popped the seat and crouched beside the machine like he was examining a patient on the edge of a heart attack. The Harley was beautiful, but it had been in a serious crash. Frame bent, exhaust cracked, internal wiring fried. "Whoever touched this before," Dre muttered under his breath, "had no business near a bike." The biker heard him and smirked. "That was my cousin. Never trusted him after that." Dre cracked a small smile. Good instincts. He got to work fast, precise, no hesitation. Pulled tools no one else in the shop even knew the names of. Tore the bike down to its bones. The biker watched every move, saying nothing, just sipping on gas station coffee and silently measuring Dre. Most men would have folded under the pressure, but Dre wasn't most men. This wasn't ego. This was craft. But the whispers started. "You see who he's working for? Man's gonna get us all in trouble. I bet the boss ain't gonna like that." By lunch, the manager had already stepped out of the office, arms crossed. "Dre," he called out loud enough for the customer to hear, "you got authorization for this?" Dre didn't even look up. No paperwork needed. Bike needed saving. The biker raised an eyebrow at that. Was this guy defending him? The manager scoffed. "We'll talk later." But Dre didn't flinch. He adjusted the torque wrench and kept going. He knew the risk, not just working on the bike, but who it belonged to. One wrong move, one scratched tank or stripped bolt, and he wouldn't just lose a job, he could lose everything. Reputation, safety, peace. But Dre didn't care. He wasn't fixing this bike for the angels. He was fixing it because machines, like people, deserved redemption. And this Harley, scarred and snarling, was about to ride again. By the time the shop lights dimmed and the others packed up for the day, Dre was still working. Sweat clung to his brow. Grease coated his fingers like a second skin. The roar of the Harley's damaged engine echoed in his mind as he traced every circuit, bolt, and bend like a surgeon mapping a heart. He hadn't even stopped for lunch. The Hell's Angel, Tank, as he eventually introduced himself, hadn't left either. He sat in the corner on an old stool, quiet as a stone. No phone, no book, just watching. Most would be unnerved by that kind of stare. But Dre, he welcomed it. "If you're gonna judge me," he said without looking up, "might as well watch me work." Tank chuckled. "I don't judge. I ride. And I remember." The frame was bent, barely noticeable, but dangerous at high speed. Dre heated and refitted it himself. A rare fuel injection glitch? He rewired it with salvaged parts from a model 3 years older. The ignition was temperamental, cutting off mid-throttle. Dre tore it apart, rebuilt it, and customized it to roar smoother than before. No shortcuts. No patches. Real work. Hours passed. And then, at 2:37 a.m., Dre twisted the key, gave the throttle a gentle pull, and that Harley came to life like a sleeping dragon. A deep, thunderous growl filled the garage. Smooth. Clean. Alive. Tank stood, wide-eyed. He approached slowly, almost reverently. "You rebuilt her," he said, voice low. "Better than she was before the crash." Dre wiped his hands on a towel and looked him dead in the eyes. "Didn't just fix it. I listened to her." Tank nodded. "Most guys try to control the bike. You respected it." At that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a bond formed not by words, but by steel, fire, and skill. But upstairs, behind the glass office window, Dre's manager had been watching too. And unlike Tank, his expression wasn't impressed, it was furious. He'd seen enough. To him, Dre wasn't a craftsman. He was a liability. And he'd just worked on the wrong bike for the wrong man. Dre didn't know it yet, but the price of excellence was coming, and it would hit harder than any engine misfire. The sun had barely risen when Dre walked into the shop the next morning, still smelling like oil and midnight victory. His eyes were tired, but his spirit was high. That bike hadn't just started, it had sung. He knew what he had done wasn't just a repair. It was a resurrection. But something felt off. The usual banter was gone. No jokes, no coffee brewing, no music playing low from the corner radio. Just stiff silence and side eyes. One mechanic avoided Dre completely. Another didn't even nod in greeting. Dre pushed open the office door and saw his manager, Rick Sanders, already seated, arms crossed and face cold as a shut gate. "Sit down," Rick said flatly. Dre took the chair across from him, arms resting calmly in his lap. Rick slid a paper across the desk. "That's your termination notice." Dre blinked, caught off guard. "For what?" Rick didn't hesitate. "Violation of shop policy. You worked on a motorcycle without clearance, after hours, and with a," he paused, eyes narrowing, "volatile customer." "You mean Tank." "I mean a Hell's Angel," Rick said. "You know what kind of attention that brings? This is a family business. We don't need trouble." Dre's voice was calm, but sharp. "I didn't bring trouble. I fixed a bike. Saved your shop the embarrassment of turning away someone because of a patch." Rick leaned forward. "You embarrassed me by acting like this place was yours. You don't make decisions here. You follow rules." Dre stood up slowly. "No. I follow the work. That bike needed fixing. And I did what no one else here could. Rick stood, too. Pack up. You're done. As Dre stepped out, he saw Tank leaning against his bike, arms crossed. He'd heard every word through the thin walls. Their eyes met. Tank didn't say anything. He just gave a slow nod, then revved his engine and disappeared down the road. Dre stood in the parking lot, holding his toolbox and years of quiet dedication. Fired not for incompetence, but for being too good, and for being the wrong person doing it. He took one last look at the garage, then walked off. He thought the story ended there. But outside that shop, something was already shifting, something louder than a V-twin engine and stronger than shop policy. Respect. And it was about to roll in heavy. Dre didn't say a word to anyone for 3 days. No angry posts. No online rants. No confrontation. Instead, he hauled his old rolling toolbox into his cousin Malik's backyard, a patch of concrete behind a 2-bedroom duplex with nothing but a sagging chain-link fence and the faint smell of barbecue from the neighbor's grill. He didn't need a fancy lift or neon signage. Just tools, time and trust. Word got around quick. A few locals started dropping by. A busted scooter. A dented muffler. A dirt bike with a stuck throttle. Dre didn't charge much, just enough to eat and keep gas in the tank. He wasn't trying to build an empire. He was trying to breathe again. But he kept thinking about Tank. The way he watched. The way he nodded. And how he never said goodbye. Then on a quiet Saturday morning, as Dre was finishing up a simple carburetor swap, the ground started to rumble. Not thunder. Engines. Loud. Deep. Multiple. Dre looked up and froze. Rolling down the street, turning the corner with mechanical precision, came a pack of over a dozen motorcycles. Harleys, choppers, custom jobs. They weren't just riding, they were announcing something. People came out of their houses, peeking through blinds, recording with their phones. The lead rider slowed first. It was Tank. He cut the engine and climbed off, sunglasses still on, a slight grin under his beard. "You thought I forgot about you?" he asked. Dre stood up slowly, wiping grease off his hands. "Didn't think you were the type to chase mechanics down." Tank chuckled. "You're not just a mechanic. You're a man who respected the bike. And the rider." Behind him, the other bikers dismounted. One tossed a cigarette, another nodded solemnly. Not a threat, a presence. Tank pulled something from his jacket, a leather vest. On the back, it didn't say, Hell's Angel. It wasn't a patch from their charter. It was custom. It read, Iron Honor, powered by Dre. "This ain't an invite to the club," Tank said. "It's a message. You've got our respect. That shop fired you." He motioned toward the empty lot across town. "Let's see how long they last without us." The silence cracked. The storm had arrived. And it was riding for Dre. Dre stood in the middle of Malik's cracked backyard driveway, still holding the vest in his hands. He didn't speak. He couldn't. The weight of the gesture wasn't lost on him. Tank hadn't just brought a crew. He brought validation. Street level. National level. Unshakable. The Hells Angels didn't offer respect lightly. Tank took a slow step forward, voice steady. "You fixed something that was damn near dead. Most shops would have turned me away, or messed it up just to say they tried. You made her sing. That ain't just skill. That's soul." Dre finally looked up. "I was just doing the job." "No," Tank corrected him. "You did our job. Better than most of us could. That patch. It don't mean you're one of us. It means you're protected by us." The other bikers nodded. Some slapped fists to hearts. These weren't just any riders. These were chapter leads, men with reputations miles long. They weren't here for show, they were staking a claim. And that claim was Dre. Tank continued. "You're not the first to get cut out because of how you look. But you might be the first who let the work speak louder than the world's ignorance." You've got our word now. That garage that tossed you? We'll make sure they regret that. And they did. By Monday morning, Griffin's auto and cycle repair had 6 cancelled appointments. Then 10. Then 20. Word spread like oil fire. No riders. No referrals. No club members. The shop's Yelp page was flooded with 1-star reviews from bikers who never forgot where loyalty should live. Rick Sanders, the same man who fired Dre, started panicking. But it was too late. Meanwhile, Dre's backyard had turned into a scene. Custom bikes lined the alley. Out-of-towners showed up asking for the guy who fixed Tank's ride. One even offered to fly him out to Arizona to build a track bike. Malik's neighbors stopped complaining about the noise. Some even brought over snacks. And Dre. He never put on the vest. But he hung it on the wall of his shed, just above his workbench. A reminder. He didn't need a gang to stand behind him. He had respect. And now, it had a rumbling engine, chrome fangs, and a loyalty forged in steel. 2 weeks after the storm of engines roared through his backyard, Dre stood in front of an old, rusted-out warehouse on the edge of town, abandoned, forgotten, and barely holding together. The windows were cracked, the paint flaking off like dry bark, and weeds curled up through the concrete. Most people would have kept walking. But Dre saw something else. He saw potential. It was Tank who handed him the key. Former clubhouse. Cleaned it out for you. Lease is paid for a year. After that, it's yours to keep, if you build something worth keeping. Dre didn't say anything. Just looked at the key in his hand, then back at the building. It didn't look like much, but it didn't have to. What mattered was what he could create inside. He got to work immediately. Word spread fast, again. This time not about the firing, but about the rebirth. Bikers, gearheads, and even a few car guys started rolling in, offering to help. One donated a lift. Another painted the sign. A pair of twin sisters from the next county, both mechanics, helped rewire the lights and install new compressors. They painted the name on the front wall in thick, bold black letters. Redeemed Cycles. No slogans. No flash. Just truth. Dre didn't just want a garage, he wanted a space. A place where anyone, no matter the patch they wore, the color of their skin, or the scars on their hands, could bring their machine and be respected. Soon, the hum of engines filled the space daily. Tank dropped by often, not to oversee, but to learn. Other riders from rival clubs started showing up too. One brought a mangled Triumph. Another asked about custom jobs. Dre treated them all the same, with care, with clarity, and without an ounce of ego. And slowly, the garage began to transform, not just physically, but spiritually. It wasn't just about bikes anymore. It was about restoration. Of metal. Of pride. Of self. People who once laughed at the black backyard mechanic, now whispered his name with reverence. The same community that doubted him now rallied behind him. Because Dre hadn't just built a garage. He built a movement, with torque, trust, and unapologetic truth. The grand opening of Redeemed Cycles wasn't flashy. No fireworks, no press. Just a gathering of engines, chrome, and respect. Dre didn't want a ribbon cutting. He wanted a ride, and Tank had an idea. Let's roll through the town, he said. The whole crew. Let him see what redemption looks like when it roars. So they did. Nearly 40 bikers, from patched veterans to fresh-faced riders, lined up outside Redeemed Cycles that morning. Black bikes, candy-colored choppers, vintage frames, all tuned and gleaming. At the front was Dre, on Tank's once-wrecked Harley. Tank insisted. She started with you. She rides with you. Dre wasn't the flashy type, but today? He wore a black denim vest with no patch, just his name stitched above the heart. Behind him, engines thundered in unity. People stepped out of stores to watch. Some waved. Others recorded on phones. Kids on bikes tried to follow along the sidewalk. They didn't ride to intimidate. They rode to honor. And just as they passed Griffin's auto and cycle, the shop that fired him, Dre slowed. A few bikers honked. Tank let out a loud, gruff laugh. Inside the glass office, Rick Sanders stood frozen. The same man who once said Dre didn't belong was now watching a parade of loyal customers, his customers, roll by behind the man he let go. Dre didn't stop. He didn't scowl. He didn't need to. The rumble of the ride was enough. Later that evening, back at the shop, Dre stood outside with Malik, sipping a cold bottle of soda, staring at the mural freshly painted on the side of the building, a hand gripping a wrench, flames behind it, and the words, "Built not bought. Earned not given." "Never thought it'd come to this," Malik said. Dre smiled, quiet but proud. "Me either. But maybe it had to." From that day on, Redeemed Cycles wasn't just a garage, it was a symbol of second chances, of underestimated talent, of a black mechanic who fixed what others wouldn't touch, and ended up becoming untouchable. Because when the world slammed the door in his face, Dre didn't break it down. He built his own, and rode through it like a legend. In a world that tried to silence his talent, Dre let his work do the talking, and it echoed louder than any engine ever could. Sometimes, the road to greatness isn't paved. It's built, bolt by bolt, ride by ride, and always on your own terms. Thanks for watching, and remember, real respect is earned, not given.